this is Animat, and welcome back to the Muppet Vlog. Now this time we're going to be looking into the 4th episode of Season 2 of The Muppet Show, which features the one and only Rich Little. Now for those of you who don't know who Rich Little is, he is actually known to be one of the true masters of impersonations. Now this is not really like any of those YouTubers that you would find that they're only one-hit wonders doing that one video where he does like a series of impressions and stuff like that. This is nothing like that. This guy's career, ever since like the very beginning, is actually all doing impersonations, and he would often do those on television, in movies, but mostly on stand-up. And the one thing to note about Rich Little, he is so good at his craft that Mel Blanc himself would call him the man of 1,000 voices. So when you get that credential from freaking Mel Blanc himself, regarded as one of, if not the greatest voice actor that ever lived, then you are pretty much legit. And going into this episode, it's actually quite interesting with the way that they would both use Rich Little and how this episode pretty much developed. Because there's actually a milestone in this, and this is actually a very significant episode to bring out something pretty interesting regarding one of the characters. Now, let me just start off about going with Rich Little. Of course, they would go into his impressions, and most that he has done in here is actually all impressions. And I will say that, like, not all of them would really hit their mark. He would actually, of course, start off doing impressions of the Muppets, like Fozzie Bear, Statler, Kermit, and Miss Piggy. It's debatable if they're really that fantastic. Like, his best would probably be Kermit, but afterwards he would do a lot more impressions, and a lot of them, like the ones that I do understand who they are, they're actually really great, because keep in mind, we're talking about the late 70s. This is an episode that aired during that time period, so it's not like anyone nowadays can jump into this episode and expect to know who he's really impersonating. Not all of them will really hit their mark, but if you do know a bit of your history and you do know some old actors back in the 50s and the 60s, like those big stars during that time, then maybe you'll know a bit about who they are. But his impersonations were not used at their full potential until the end of the episode, where they actually used it amazingly, was when he would use his impressions to sing some songs. Well, unfortunately, I couldn't really get all of them at once. Like, the one that is really recognizable, of course, is actually the very beginning when he would sing Singing in the Rain. And I will say that with Rich Little, my god, he could really hit his mark very, very well. And often, I do admire some of the impersonations that he has done. In fact, like, as someone who wants to go into voice acting and would love to do a lot of impressions, it's something that, like, I really do admire, and that, like, a part of me really do wants to, I do want to learn from him about how he does it. In fact, I have actually done some impression video myself. Let me just put them up here so you could go check them out. Like, if you guys remember these videos, yeah, that's when I tried to do my little jab at doing impressions myself. Not all of them are great, but just saying, like, I've done some. But anyways, yeah, like, some of what Rich Little has done, basically, in the episode is actually absolutely fantastic and undeniably highly memorable and just a lot of fun to watch. But the one thing that is actually really interesting to learn about this episode is that this is a landmark moment for Gonzo. Why, you may ask? Well, this is not the moment when he would go and do his daredevil stunts just yet. He's still in a bit of his artistic phase where he would do some really, like, oddball acts. Like, he's pretty much out of his artistic mode, where he would just shout out to the audience, yokels, rubes, and all that kind of stuff. This is actually the moment where Gonzo found his interest in chickens, because in the episode, and what the whole backstory is basically that Gonzo wants to do an act with a dancing chicken, so he would go and audition with all these chickens. Now, keep in mind, though, there is a bit of a catch. It is very easy to do it with Muppet chickens, but no, this time, they actually brought in live chickens, and as you can probably tell, things don't necessarily go well. It's not like the chickens... Actually, now thinking about it, the chickens barely do anything. They barely even walked. That's the thing. They were just like... Sometimes they were just standing there, and sometimes they were just like walking around. The only thing, the most that you would see a chicken do is the first time we would actually see a chicken and it would interact with Kermit, and it would just like, it would just be walking and then suddenly it'll be jumping into another crate. But it is actually very interesting to point out that this is actually the origins of Gonzo's fascination with chickens, and it would eventually grew into a relationship with right now, where Gonzo's girlfriend is Camilla the chicken. Hey, I mean, what can I say? Like, when it comes to love, you never know where you can find it, and like you never know what type of girl or guy you might be interested in. You never know, like, where you can find your answers for love. That's one of the things in life. Now, when it comes to some of the some of the sketches themselves, there really isn't much that's worth remembering, really. Of course, like, there are some cute ones, some enjoyable ones, but they weren't really as memorable as the moments with Rich Little or the backstory with Gonzo and his chickens. There's one with Chanson d'Amour that they actually start off with, and the twist is that they brought in Crazy Harry, and if you guys know Crazy Harry, you know the insane things that are about to go down there. There is another one, just looking through it, there is an At the Dance number that's actually really funny. This is probably the funniest At the Dance number that I have seen yet, and it is actually a lot of fun. In fact, the best bit is pretty much like when you see this woman asking Animal, it's like, am I holding you too tight? Ah, well, now you say it. It was definitely a lot of fun. Oh, and then there's this one where you got this lizard Muppet. Apparently he's singing Shine Little Glowworm, or, well, not really singing, it's just like mostly mumbles and like doing this little scale like, and like you just see this little worm just poking at him. But the best way to describe it is that this feels like a childhood nightmare. This looks like a scenario that you would get it looks like something that you would get a nightmare, not a nightmare out of, but this looks like a 5-year-old's nightmare, where suddenly, like, then comes this big monster that would pretty much eat the little lizard character. And that's how it feels, because even with the tempo and stuff like that, it just feels like a childhood nightmare, and there's no other way to describe it. But other than that, there isn't really much worth noting in there. So overall, I would say that the main components are really what made this episode, and it really is fascinating to see the origins of where some of the stuff came from. Of course, you got a really good example of Rich Little's capabilities as an impersonator, but also at the same time, it really is fascinating just to see Gonzo's origins of where he found his love with chickens. Now I'd just like to point out, though, that in the episode itself, you're not going to see Gonzo's love for chickens, but like pretty much where the connection with Gonzo and chickens came from. That's where it got a bit interesting. But anyways, that is pretty much it for this episode, and you know, as of right now, like, it kind of did inspire me to go and practice a bit more of my impressions myself, so we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, we'll just wait and see how things go in the next episode, so until next time, see you later, dudes!